نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. جنات عدن يدخلونها يحلون فيها من أساور من ذهب ولؤلؤا ولباسهم فيها حرير. وقالوا الحمد لله الذي أذهب عنا الحزن إن ربنا لغفور شكور الذي أحلنا دار المقامة من فضله لا يمسنا فيها نصب ولا يمسنا فيها لغوب والذين كفروا لهم نار جهنم لا يقضى عليهم فيموتوا ولا يخفف عنهم من عذابها كذلك نجزي كل كفور. وهم يصطرخون فيها ربنا أخرجنا نعمل صالحا غير الذي كنا نعمل أولم نعمركم ما يتذكر فيه من تذكر وجاءكم النذير فذوقوا فما للظالمين من نصير. Respectful friends, in the previous verses that we had carried out, we were done in last week's tafsir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned the three categories of believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned ثُمَّ أَوْرَثْنَا الْكِتَابَ الَّذِينَ اصْطَفَيْنَا مِنْ عِبَادِنَا, that thereafter we made those our bondsmen whom we chose as inheritors of the book. فَمِنْهُمْ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ وَمِنْهُمْ مُقْتَصِدٌ وَمِنْهُمْ سَابِقٌ بِالْخَيْرَاتِ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَضْلُ الْكَبِيرُ. Allah Ta'ala ended the verse by saying, this is Allah's extreme grace. ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَضْلُ الْكَبِيرُ. Meaning that from those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen as heirs of the book, from them there are those who zalimun li nafsi, and we've done this in detail last week, those who have wronged themselves, and then there are those who wa minhum muqtasid, those who are moderate, and wa minhum sabiqun bil khayrat bi-idhnillah, and those who are leaders in good deeds. So Allah Ta'ala says that in ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَضْلُ الْكَبِيرُ, that this meaning is the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and part of the grace of Allah ta'ala is the manner in which He will reward those categories of believers. And the manner in which Allah ta'ala will reward them is جَنَّاتُ عَدْنِ يَدْخُلُونَهَا يُحَلَّوْنَ فِيهَا مِنْ أَسَاوِرَ مِنْ ذَهَبٍ وَلُؤْلُؤًا وَلِبَاسُهُمْ فِيهَا حَرِيرٌ. Allah Ta'ala says that in Jannatu Adn, in the eternal Jannat, يَدْخُلُونَهَا, that they will enter, meaning the believers. يُحَلَّوْنَ فِيهَا, they will be adorned with asawira min dhahab, bracelets of gold, وَلُؤْلُؤًا, and pearls. وَلِبَاسُهُمْ فِيهَا حَرِيرٌ, their garments will be of silk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the appearances, or you can say the adornment of the people of Jannah. And here that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned and described is not for the women, this is for the men. That in Jannah men will they will adorn themselves with bracelets of gold and pearls, and their garments will be made of silk. Now we all know that such type of jewelry and adornment, here in this world, this is for women. So we may think to ourselves that this is a bit odd that men are going to wear bracelets. And of course, for us it should feel odd, because here in this world men do not wear jewelry. That's for women. Unless there are those men who don't want to be a man in appearance and emulate women with the earrings that they have, nose studs that they have, and the bracelets and bangles and whatnot and chains and all sorts of other jewelry that they adorn. And these are those things which, and rings in every finger. Now this is for who? Either you are a woman or you are a gangster. So it's either in those categories. Otherwise, men and Deen and Islam, Shariat has actually made these things impermissible for men. That here in this world, for a male to wear jewelry or utilize gold, silver, and similarly silk clothing, this is something that is impermissible. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala has mentioned in hadith as well, that man labis al-harira fi dunya lam yalbashu fil akhirah. That person who wears silk here in this world will not wear it in the hereafter. And this refers to a believer after all. And the fact that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that he will not wear it in the hereafter, there are those muhaddithin who have that opinion that it means that this person won't go in Jannat. Or it means that this person will go into Jannat, but in Jannat they will be deprived of libasum fiha harir, of silk garments. So in this way they will look odd as well, because others will have this garment but they will not. And that is because of them wearing it here in this world. Elsewhere Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that it is for them, lahum fid dunya wa lakum fil akhirah. That it is for who? It is for them, meaning non-believers, to wear it here and for you in the hereafter. In another riwayah, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that whoever wears it here, then they will not get to wear it in the hereafter. But this refers to also for Muslim men. As on one occasion, there was a market stall, and this market stall came and stopped just outside the doors of Masjid al-Nabawi. And there was a person who was selling silk jabbas, you can say, silk garments. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala at that time had suggested to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, O Nabi of Allah, why do you not also purchase such a jabba for yourself? So that when people come to you, as in the various delegations come to you, or similarly when the day of Eid comes, you can wear it on those occasions. On which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to Umar, that meaning the silk, those garments, these are for those who do not want to wear it in the hereafter. And on one occasion, before the prohibition of it, Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam on one occasion actually did wear a silk garment. But at that time it wasn't outlawed. And then when Nabi sallallahu had it on, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam all of a sudden just out of detest took it off quickly. Kal makarihi, the riwayat mentions. Out of detest, the one who dislikes something, he out of detest quickly took it off. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam the prohibition of wearing silk garments. Similarly, Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam had also made a ring that was made out of gold. As I mentioned this before as well, that ring was actually as a seal, as a stamp. But it was made out of gold. And again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited gold jewelry for a man, so Nabi sallallahu took that out and he threw it away. And when Nabi sallallahu had made that, the other Sahaba had made similar as well. When Nabi Kareem sallallahu removed it and took it out off, the other Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala had done the same. Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala had said this to Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, that this is for those who will not get to wear it in the hereafter, meaning the silk garment. Not long after that, a similar garment came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam as a gift. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave that to Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala. When he gave that to Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he asked him, O Nabi of Allah, this is the same thing that you said, what you did say about it, and you give that to me. So he got a bit worried, that does that mean that I'm not from the people of Jannah, that you're giving it to me? What? And how come you mentioned a prohibition and you've given it to me? To which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that, Umar, I haven't given it to you to wear, you can make other use of it. Meaning that the garment itself is not impermissible to have in your possession. It is allowed for women folk, it is allowed for others, it is not allowed for men to wear silk clothing. Just on one occasion, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, Nabi had gifted him silk, a garment of silk. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala wore it, or he made a top out of it, and he came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nabi looked at him angrily, that it wasn't given to you to wear, and this is prohibited. So he took it off and he distributed amongst the women folk of his family. So Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he sent it and he gifted it to his half-brother, who was in Makkatul Mukarramah and who wasn't a Muslim as yet. Because the rules were not for non-Muslims, so he sent it to him and gifted it to him. Which shows that it is still permissible for women to utilize it and also to be able to sell it. So it's not prohibited in that sense, it is prohibited for men folk to wear silk, and that to jewelry which is made out of gold and silver. However, for women folk it is permissible. Yes, that which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prohibited for both men and women is the utilization of utensils made out of gold and silver. Because these are going to be what the utensils of Jannat. So for that reason, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has prohibited it here. So Huzaifa bin Yaman radiallahu ta'ala mentions, as on one occasion, his servant that he had, who was not a Muslim, he was a Najumi, he wasn't a Muslim. So he brought some water for him and he brought it in a gold barrel, in a gold bowl. And Sayyidina Huzaifa bin Yaman radiallahu ta'ala threw it that away. And when he checked it away, threw it away, and he set out angrily. And he mentioned to those who were there, the only reason I've done this is because I've told him so many times not to present anything to me in gold utensils. Why? Because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has prohibited the use of gold and silver utensils. And the reason for this, as I mentioned to you, is that this will be in Jannat. So a person should not be an advanced Jannati. Should not be an advanced Jannati. Like a part of the appearance of a male in Jannat is that the males will not have beards in Jannat. Not have them. So we should not be advanced Jannatis. Keep the beard here in this world, but not because it is fashion, but out of emulating the Sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. And the reward of that is that a person won't have a beard in Jannah. Naturally, you won't have to worry about the beard in Jannah. Now coming back to what I was mentioning, that a person may think to themselves that look, a male wearing a bracelet and wearing silk clothing, it doesn't really make sense to us. And the reason why it doesn't make sense to us, because we are thinking of it according to what we wear here in this world, of our dressing here in this world. This is related to Jannat, and Jannat is going to be different. So in Jannat this will be the dressing. As on riwayat al-Tirmizi it is mentioned that the believers will be given a crown to wear, which will be, Bululu as Allah Ta'ala mentions here, which will be made of pearls. And the most dim of the pearls used in it, meaning the lowest quality of the pearl that will be used, will be such that the radiance of it will fill the entire east to west. So just imagine the highest quality of it. And this is what the Jannatis will wear. And also the men will be given what bangles which will be of gold and silver. So here it may not suit a male to be wearing these things, but in Jannat it will suit a person. So this is on the basis of how Jannat will be. So there Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Jannat, and unfortunately there are many men who do wear silk clothing as well. And the ruling is that it should not be majority. If it is a garment which is non-silk, but it may have a little bit of silk on the collars, for example, or maybe just the buttons are of silk. So some hemming here and there. As in one occasion, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was asked with regards to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam indicated 3-4 fingers. I mean that it has a little bit of silk here and there, then that is acceptable. But for a person to wear an entire garment of silk, that is impermissible. Unless a person has, for medical grounds, as in Zubair bin Awam radiallahu ta'ala, Nabi Kareem had allowed him to wear silk garment because he had some rush. And for some, Nabi allowed them to wear it in the time of battle, because real silk itself is something that is very strong as well. The threads are very strong as well. So if that is worn at the time of war, as in the inner garment, then it's not so easy for the sword to pierce through it as well. So those are exceptions, otherwise a male should not be, as I mentioned to you, especially when he comes to occasions like weddings, or the dressing and the clothing that men folk wear in the time on weddings as well, are unfortunately out of silk. So this should be left for the women folk, and this is for those people who, from the men folk, and for those who will not get of it in the hereafter. So Allah Ta'ala mentions Jannatu Adnin, in the eternal Jannat that they will enter, and one of the blessings Allah Ta'ala mentions here is Jannatu Adnin. That when it comes to the hereafter, it is going to be what? Adn. It is a place where a person will enter eternally. يَدْخُلُونَ يُحَلَّوْنَ فِيهَا مِنَ أَسَاوِرَ. They will be adorned with bracelets of gold and pearls. وَلِبَاسُهُمْ فِيهَا حَرِيرٌ. And the garments will be made of silk. وَقَالُوا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي أَذْهَبَ عَنَّا الْحَزَنَ إِنَّ رَبَّنَا لَغَفُورٌ شَكُورٌ الَّذِي حَلَّنَا دَارُ الْمَقَامَةِ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ لا يمسنا فيها نصب ولا يمسنا فيها لغوب. Now when they enter into Jannah, they will say, وَقَالُوا, and they will say, all praise is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, الَّذِي هُ أَذْهَبَ عَنَّا الْحَزَنَ, who removed grief from us. إِنَّ رَبَّنَا لَغَفُورٌ شَكُورٌ. Undoubtedly our Rabb is most forgiving and most appreciative. In the hereafter, when the believers will enter into Jannah, now when will this specific be said, as well as what is meant by the hazan that Allah Ta'ala mentions here, the grief? There is difference of opinion of the mufassirin. But the believers on the day of Qiyamah, as in one riwayat Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has mentioned, that those who are the upholders of the kalima la ilaha illallah, that when they will be resurrected, that on the day of Qiyamah, when they will going to be, on the day of resurrection, when they will be resurrected from their graves, that's when they will say this, that Alhamdulillah alladhi adhaba anna al-hazan. That all praise is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has removed the grief from us, means that they will raise from the graves without any form of grievance upon them at all. That all praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has removed from us hazan. And the hazan here refers towards all the grief, meaning that there are different opinions of the mufassirin as to which grief specifically is mentioned here. But the correct opinion is that whichever opinion you take is included in it, meaning whatever grief related to the hereafter is included here, as well as that of this world. Because this world, nobody at all is free from any form of hardship, difficulty, sorrows or grief in this world. Whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, whether you're righteous or not righteous, irrelevant. Even a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam were not freed from this. So nobody is free from the hardships and difficulty of this world. But then when a person goes to Jannah, then a person is going to be freed from all the hardships and difficulties of this world as it is. So one is related to this world. Meaning that when a person goes into Jannah, and when he enters into Jannah, and when he sees his Jannah, it won't enter his mind, and he won't think to himself, how am I going to pay the bills? If I'm going to have such a large Jannah and such a huge palace, then how am I going to afford it? Because one is you can afford the bill in the house, but then the other is about the maintenance. So the maintenance is also very important as well, isn't it? People want a big, nice, lavish household. So there are some may manage to get that house, but then it's a case of maintaining it. The more bedrooms you're going to have, the bigger it's going to be. The more room and space you're going to have, the more the maintenance is going to be as well. When a person enters Jannah, they're not going to think about that. You see all the huge candles, the lights that are there, and all the beautiful things that are there, and a person will wonder as well at how I'm going to afford the bills and that. Will I be billed for all the lavish food that is there? So a person in the hereafter is going to be free from all the hardships of this world, whatever griefs a person has, whatever worries they have of this world. A person is going to be fully, he goes in Jannah and he sees his hoods as well, and he's going to think there as well, about maintenance here. One is so difficult, and a person needs to work till they pass the age of marriage. By the time they can get married, and that's how it has become now. Then they'll wonder if I'm going to get so many, and if it is going to be the 72 hoods, then that's going to be expensive. So there won't be any of those griefs at all in the hereafter. Anything pertaining to this world, that is totally alleviated when a person leaves this world. So that is one of the hazard. And the other is that on the day of resurrection, then there is all the various trials of the akhirat itself, of the resurrection, which is going to be so difficult. And that is going to be so much grief as well. With regards to the hisab kitab, with regards to the mizan, with regards to whether a person will be forgiven by Allah Ta'ala or not, whether they will be saved from the fire of Jahannam or not, whether they will be entered into Jannat or not. So there will be so many griefs with regards to the hereafter itself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save a person from that as well. Allah mentions, لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. That those people who قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. That those who have brought iman Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have remained steadfast upon it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes their fear and Allah ta'ala removes their grief. La khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun, which is mentioned as well. Khawf is referring to this world. Because when a dying person departs from this world, and when a person is on their deathbed, there's two things that now is going to concern them. One is the journey to come, and the other is the departure as well. Those that they're going to leave behind. So a person, no matter how much they may be looking forward to the hereafter of meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're still going to feel about those who they're going to leave behind. So in the riwayat it mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends in Jibreel alayhi salam at that time to specifically give glad tidings to this person that look, you do not need to worry with regard to those who are leaving behind. This is la khawfun alayhim. That they do not need to fear with regards to the safety and the protection of those who they are leaving behind. And this is what happens when the person departs from this world. And those who they leave behind, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala creates such means, Allah Ta'ala gives them that sabr, Allah Ta'ala gives them the ability. And their life continues. So in this way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives that person already that sort of contentment. To not be worried about those that they're leaving behind here. And وَلَهُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, referring towards all the other stages of the hereafter. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these are those who, they will say, Alhamdulillah alladhi azhaba anna al-hazan, has removed from us the grief. Imam Jassas Rahmatullah Ali mentions on this verse as well, that this hazan that Allah Ta'ala mentions shows that after all, every person is going to have grief here in this world. But a believer and a true believer is the one whose life is always full of sorrow and grief, hazan fikr. Because a believer always has what the fikr of the akhirat. Always has the fikr of the akhirat. And it is because of this that Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam and the Sahaba Kiram radiyallahu ta'ala predominantly in their lives, you would find that most of the time they would always have grief and sorrow. They would always have grief and sorrow, to which he mentions that this is the trait of a believer. That a believer is not one who lives in this world with sort of no sorrow or no grief at all, no fikr, no concern with regards to the hereafter. That the believer is one that is just chilled. Everything is fine. We're so happy. Yes, worldly grievances come and they come and go. The grievances of this world will come and they'll go. There'll be some hardship, but then this hardship is over and then some other happiness comes about. So this condition changes on an individual. But a believer is one that with regards to the hazan of the akhirat, that is something that does not leave him. That's why Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was always da'imul fikri mutawazil huzn. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam always had fikr. Always, it was something that was part and parcel of their lives. And this is how a believer should be. And this is the reality as well. That maybe when a person is still young, they do not take the akhirat so serious. But then when a person then, comes into a bit of adulthood and further than that, and then you take heed, you see people who are passing away near dear to you, and those who are similar age to you as well, and you see the reality of this world and that. Then things change. Then now a person doesn't become one that when you think about it now, that there were years ago when you in a young age and some years when you had nothing, no figure of the akhirat at all. The akhirat was the last thing you would think about. And now is a case of, in every happiness there is figure of the akhirat. So every happiness has still that grief and sorrow that it hasn't, that is there. And this is how a believer's life should be. And the reward of that is that because of that here, as the Nabi mentions, that ad-dunya sijnul mu'min. This world for a believer is a prison after all. And in a prison you're not going to be over happy all the time, and you're not going to be celebrating all the time. So this is a place where there should be that hazan of the akhirat, and the reward of that is that on the hereafter when you'll be resurrected, Allah Ta'ala will then remove. So the glad tidings have been given there in the grave. Whilst in the grave you're shown your Jannah, so when that was shown to you, then when you resurrect and you come out of the grave on the day of resurrection, a person will say this, that Allah Ta'ala, praise to Allah Ta'ala who's removed that hazan. And then in the hereafter there is no hazan at all. And part of the hazan is the deen, because why? Because in the Rabbana laghafurun shakur. Ghafur, forgiving and appreciative. Appreciative of what? Of iman and the good deeds that a person did. For example, here in this world, a person, even if you go somewhere for instance, for a believer there is always what that fikr of halal haram. Food has to be halal haram, where we going, how we going. Similarly, there's always the times of salat as well. So you have to be conscious of that as well. In the month of Ramadan there's a fasting, so a person will undertake a lot of difficulty with regards to what carrying out the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is also a fikr, isn't it? The person has that fikr, you go to sleep, the fikr, I should be able to wake up for Fajr Salah. You're traveling somewhere as well, look, I shouldn't miss my Salah. There's always that fikr that is there on a person, will I be able to carry out the Hajj or not? And later on when a person dies and leaves this world, now there is no farais. And when there is no farais now, that imagine a person is in Jannat. But in Jannat now as well, you have to remember, I can't just be relaxing all the time, I have to remember the time of Salah. So in Jannah there is no salah. In Jannah there is no obligations whatsoever. But rather in Jannah it will be a case of the believers out of appreciation of what Allah Ta'ala has given will want to do the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but there won't be any obligation. So all the farais, all that which was farz, all that which was incumbent and wajib, that's all finished now. So there isn't that, hasn't that fikr as well. So a believer has that constant fikr. So in the Rabbana la ghafurun shakur. And our Rabb is most forgiving. And because He is most forgiving, that's why we will find ourselves in that condition. Because our amal is not worthy of it. It is just because Allah Ta'ala overlooks our shortcomings. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shakur. And this is how fortunate we are. That it's not difficult to win Allah Ta'ala over. That is how easy for it. People here in this world will still be difficult. You disobey them a few times, or you do something to hurt them, and you do something bad to them. They may not forget, or they may not forgive. And if they do forgive, they say, what, I forgive, but don't forget. So this is how people are here. It's very difficult. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't. Allah ta'ala is laghafurun shakur. Allah is waiting, ask me forgiveness as many times as you want to. So it is a lot easy for a person to win Allah Ta'ala over. And just imagine if Allah Ta'ala was like we are, so hard and difficult, nobody will be forgiven by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, nobody at all. Every ibadat of ours would be the same. Each salah that we perform, you get the rejection on it. This wasn't correct, your class wasn't there, your niyat wasn't correct, your ruku wasn't correct, your devotion wasn't correct. Your mind was somewhere else. So many faults that we know what our salat, it would immediately be rejected. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the day of Qiyamah, Allah Ghafur. Allah Ta'ala will forgive all the short we've done, the sins that we've committed, and Shakur. Even that type of salah, that type of tilawah, that type of ibadah, that type of hajj, roza, zakat, Allah Ta'ala appreciates it, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will reward us for that. So along with saying Alhamdulillah alladhi adhaba anna al-hazan, they will also say alladhi ahallana dar al-maqamati min fadlihi, that He has settled us in dar al-maqama. Dar al-maqama is the place of iqama, meaning eternal abode. Who has settled us in an eternal home, min fadlihi, through His grace. Wherein la yamassuna fiha nasab, wherein no difficulty, nasab means difficulty, will ever afflict us. Wala yamassuna fiha lughub, nor shall any tiredness touch us. And these are great, should not be overlooked, these things. What is Darul Maqam? An example I give as well. A person goes on a holiday, and you go on holiday, you go to somewhere very nice and comfortable, 5-star hotel. But when you go to the 5-star hotel, and you're there for what? For 5 nights. So, you know that you're there for 5 nights. Maybe the first night you might enjoy yourself, but then again, you know that look, this is 5 nights, so this is 1 night over, you've only got 4 nights left. So even in that enjoyment, you know that it's temporary. So you can't even enjoy that. Following night, you know what, now you've got 4 nights, then you've got 3 nights, and then you've got 2 nights, and then it's a case of, look, this is our last night, and then we're back to Dewsbury. So, even that, no matter how luxurious it is, how comfortable it is, you're still not going to be you're not going to enjoy to the maximum, knowing that it's temporary. The testimony of Jannat was like that as well. That if it was temporary, that okay, you lived for 90 years, in that 90 years you did the ibadah of Allah Ta'ala for 50 years, you go to Jannah for 50 years. Person will be counting every day, isn't it? And knowing that look, it's going to come to an end, 60 years, 10 years, or 5 years only, or 1 year in Jannah. But here, in Darul Maqam, it is an eternal home. So the Jannati will just find so much comfort in that knowing that once they've entered into Jannah, they're not going to be removed from Jannah, they won't be exiled or exited or evicted from Jannah. No eviction notices will be given there at all. And this is all out of what? Min fadlihi. Merely out of the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing else but the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is mentioned last week as well. Nabi mentioned that nobody will ever enter into Jannah due to his a'mal, but only through the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rahmat and the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then they will also see that this is that place wherein la yamassuna fiha nasabun, that no difficulty will ever afflict us. And again, you can be in a very nice, comfortable surrounding, but you can become ill. You can't save. It doesn't mean that the better surrounding you're in, you're not going to get ill. That's not the case. You can be in a very clean environment, you still become ill. COVID came and the entire clean areas in the Western world was inflicted with it. So illnesses can inflict a person, old age can come about, there's so many things. But here when a person enters into Jannah, then la yamassuna fiha nasab. No difficulty, no toiling whatsoever, no waking up of Fajr anymore, no any sort of, as I mentioned to you, no bills there, no maintenance there, none of these things to worry about in Jannah. And then the other is, وَلَا يَمَسُّنَا فِيهَا لُغُوبٌ. Here in this world, we do whatever we do, but our bodies will become tired. And even when we do go for those 5 nights somewhere, a person thinks, no, it's so enjoyable here, I'm not going to sleep and waste my time sleeping. I'd rather try and stay awake and enjoy it as much as possible. So this king size bed, I'd rather stay awake the whole night to enjoy the comfort of the bed and the surroundings. If I'm going to sleep, then I'm going to waste that amount of time and I'm going to miss out on it. So what's going to happen? You're going to have to fall off to sleep because you're going to become tired. So in Jannat, there is not a case of we're going to waste time sleeping. So, وَلَا يَمَسُّنَا فِيهَا لُغُوبٌ. Lughub means tiredness. That a person will not become tired in Jannat. That now a person thinks, because you can be enjoying yourself, if you're tired, like now as well, I'm sure you're enjoying the tafsir. But then there is the whole tiredness as well, isn't it? So that also then makes that enjoyment a little difficult. You're tired, you want to stay, somebody's talking to you at night and you want to stay awake. But you're tired as well. You want the Imam Sahib in Isha to read some nice long Qur'an, but you're tired as well, isn't it? 11 o'clock Isha. And for those who do stay up or wait till that 11 o'clock to read the Isha. Great mujahada for that as well. And then those who go to sleep and then wake up for the Qur'an for Fajr as well. So great mujahada in those timings. Person is tired. So that tiredness itself takes away so much enjoyment. But in Jannat that won't be the case. وَلَا يَمَسُّنَا فِيهَا لُغُوبٌ. To that extent that all illnesses will be removed. And by illness we mean physical, medical illnesses as well as ruhani illnesses. Mean that there won't be any hasad or jealousy. Because that can spoil your Jannat as well, isn't it? That you're in Jannat and another Jannat has hasad on you. Why is his Jannat better than my Jannat for? Why is he in a higher abode than me? And you always be concerned about what others are going to think about how good your Jannat is. Then that's going to also take away the enjoyment of those bounties of Allah Ta'ala. So that will be removed. Every person is going to be so content in what state they are going to be, that they're not going to look at your bangles and your bracelets and that and say, why he's got this and I haven't got that. Everyone will be content and happy as in the state that they are going to be. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove all internal filth as well. No illnesses to worry about at all. No, and the food as well will be such that here as well, no matter how good the food is, you still have to cut off, isn't it? You can't keep on eating. And then even if you overeat, then you have to worry about the consequences of overeating as well. And then you have the age-related matters as well when people reach certain ages. And then there's also issues with regard to how much you can eat, how much you can't eat, and what you can and what you cannot eat. In Jannat, all that will be removed. There won't be any need for a person to relieve themselves. There's no filth, so there won't be any issues with regards to indigestion, there won't be constipation, there won't be any of these illnesses whatsoever at all. There won't be any bad breath either. And there'll be no smoking either. Because the smokers will be where the fire is. Because if you want to smoke, then it's going to be a case of you're going to have to get a light from somewhere, isn't it? And the only light is going to be that side. So there won't be any of these things at all. And the hadith mentioned that how will the person digest the food? There is a slight burp will emit from within. And that too, the smell of it will be like that of musk. So you won't be knocking anybody out at all. And on that a person will find content. Because a person burps to burp or not to burp, that is indigestion. So a person will find what? Comfort out of that. So there won't be any of these type of things that a person needs to worry about. All the issues of this world. So لا يمسنا فيها نصب ولا يمسنا فيها لغوب. And these are those things that Allah Ta'ala is already telling us beforehand that look, this is how Jannat is going to be. This is how Jannat is going to be. But for that, what do we have to do? We just have to make that bit of mujahada for whatever life Allah Ta'ala has given us here in this world, and in reward, this is what we're going to get. For that indigestion here, you did sabr upon it, you rewarded for it there. That constipation, this is a reward for it. That illness, this is a reward for it. That hardship in carrying out the ibadat of Allah Ta'ala, the hardship in abstaining from disobedience of Allah Ta'ala, this is a reward for it. And then, on the contrary, Allah Ta'ala says, but وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَهُمْ نَارُ جَهَنَّمْ. And this is the way in the Qur'an, Allah Ta'ala, where Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala mentions the one side, Allah Ta'ala reminds us of the other side as well. Where the reward is, the azab is as well. Jannat is mentioned, Jahannam is mentioned. That وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, on the contrary, those who commit kufr, لَهُمْ نَارُ جَهَنَّمْ, will have the fire of Jahannam. So they will have to contend with that. Allah Ta'ala save us and protect us. لَا يُخْضَى عَلَيْهِمْ, where no decree will be passed against them. فَيَمُوتُوا, so that they may die. Meaning what? When a person is suffering, you say what? Let death come upon me. Or a person will commit suicide as a way to escape from that difficulty. If that was possible, in all the Jannamis, all those in Jannah will commit suicide. Immediately they will commit suicide before even going into Jannah. That we don't want to go into Jannah, they will commit suicide. Or the moment they go into the fire of Jahannam, they burn to death and that's it, they'll be over with. But Allah Ta'ala says no. He's going to face لَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْهِمْ فَيَمُوتُوا, that there will be no decree of death, that they will pass away, meaning that it is something which is eternal. In Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, day of Qiyamah, death will be brought in a form of an animal, a ram, and it will be sacrificed, and it will be told to the people of Jannat, khulud, And Jahannam, khulud, I mean it's forever. You Jannat for Jannat, Jahannam, Jahannam, you're going to be forever. لا يخفف عنهم من عذابها. And Allah Ta'ala mentions that their punishment will also not be lightened. لا يخفف عنهم من عذابها. That their punishment will not be lightened either. كذلك نجزي كل كفور. Thus do we punish every ungrateful one. Here kafur is mentioned. Because the word of a kafir has different meanings to it. It has different meanings to it. And here kafur is with regards to the one who does kufr, and the one who does kufr is one who is the ungrateful one, who doesn't recognize Allah Ta'ala in the bounties of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So their condition will be such that they on the day of Qiyamah will be punished by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in such a way. There will be no let off now with regards to the punishment. Because this was the world wherein they had the opportunity of saving themselves from the punishment. وَهُمْ يَصْطَرِخُونَ فِيهَا. They, the disbelievers, will be screaming in it. Meaning they will be screaming for help in Jahannam, saying, رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا نَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي كُنَّا نَعْمَلُ. That, oh our Rabb. Now they all say, رَبَّنَا, oh our Rabb, remove us from here. أَخْرِجْنَا, remove us from here. So that na'amal salihan, meaning that send us back to the world that we will do those deeds. غَيْرَ الَّذِي كُنَّا نَعْمَلْ, unlike those that we had carried out. Meaning that now we will go and we will change ourselves and we will not do those things that we used to carry out. So they will plead to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, cry for help. And this will be the remorse that they will have on the day of Qiyamah. And we are so fortunate that Allah Ta'ala will save us from this because of the Iman, as long as we stay steadfast on our Iman. And the way of staying steadfast on our Iman is by us practicing our Iman, being firm on our Iman, doing the carrying out the obedience of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And when they will then cry to Allah Ta'ala and plead to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, that's when Allah Ta'ala will say to them that, look, أَوَلَمْ نُعَمِّرْكُمْ, that now you are pleading to me and wanting to go back to this world. However, أَوَلَمْ نُعَمِّرْكُمْ, did we not grant you sufficient life, an age in which مَا يَتَذَكَّرُ فِيهِ مَنْ تَذَكَّرَ, in which the one who takes heed may take heed, and وَجَاءَكُمُ النَّذِيرُ, and not only that, and did a warner not come to you? Now فَذُوقُوا فَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِن نَصِيرٍ. So taste what? The oppressors will not have, so taste meaning the adha, فَذُوقُوا, the taste it now. And فَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِن نَصِيرٍ. The oppressors will not have a helper on the day of Qiyamah. So Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will then say that, look, أَوَلَمْ نُعَمِّرْكُمْ, you're complaining now and you want to save yourselves now, but had you not been given enough and sufficient time in your lives in which you could have taken heed and taken lesson and brought about a change in your life? And not only that, the warner had also come to you. So why did you not take heed on that? And now we shall leave it on this. However, inshallah, Allah wills, next week we shall continue with this same verse, وَلَمْ نُعَمِّرْكُمْ مَا يَتَذَكَّرُ فِيهِ مَنْ تَذَكَّرَ, as in what is the time scale and what is meant by here of sufficient age, what is the opinion with regards to it. That inshallah Allah wills, we shall continue with next week, but just gone over the translation of it at least. So Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala include us all from those who will have all these bounties of Allah Ta'ala in Jannat, from the people of Jannat, and save us all from the fire of Jannam. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.